Okay, so let's add a few more edges, and actually looks like here I've got some leftover inside faces. Let's get rid of those so we keep it all nice and clean. There we go. Maybe this is a time where we can go back and turn back our big face calling on so we can actually see the whole the whole model. And I did tweak these points just a little bit. What we're gonna do is we're gonna add one more section here in the middle, just going straight into the tail, because we do want to add couple of more elements, which is again somewhere here. First of all, we can now use these points to define that crease here, and actually somewhere here, this is where this little mouse claw is going to be extruded. And notice actually that if we're gonna start to stretch this out a little bit, we are killing our crease here, our nice hard crease. So which means that we need to add one more subdivisions here. If we're gonna go and do one more subdivision this way, we're actually gonna go again right into that tail, and now this is becoming much more cluttered, which we don't really want. On the other hand, if we look at our mesh here, we do have another loop that actually just stops right here at the tail, right? So we can do that. We can add one more subdivision this way, which will end right here. So as we have this subdivision, we can actually bring it closer here to that edge, and then instead use this outer edge to define the crease here. It will take a little bit more work to go one point at a time and adjust all of these points, but that's basically what modeling is all about: pushing and pulling points around. And we need to get comfortable with that. And let's take a look at our structure here. We can maybe even keep it just the way it is and give it a little bit of a lip right there to also define and separate the head from the back. There we go. So now we can quickly just grab this face and create this little claw that's right in here. Let's take a look at our face. Again, it's a good idea to make adjustments to the base before you actually extrude it. There we go. And I suggest that here we're just gonna simply pull one more section, bring these two edges close together, just like that. I have to double check the reference to make it proper, but we can basically either take these side faces and extrude them out just like this to create a little claw here, and maybe even keep on going this way. There are all these different decisions that we can make. We can maybe even, if it actually hooks one direction, we can maybe just use these two, one side and one front face, to create a little claw or hand, fingers and a thumb type of thing. This way. But again, don't let your points escape and go into weird directions, because it will be hard later on to get them all looking nice and good. So I mean, this is definitely too big. I think those are much smaller here, so we can bring this in a little bit more. But that gives us a general idea on how we can approach that, and again, the rest is basically readjusting and adding more loops. So at this point we can bring more edges in by simply dropping in the edge loops. Everything is looking good, and we can start creating creases by basically dropping in an additional edges. I think I'm kind of repeating myself here. Something like this would and should work. So one point at a time, we should get to a much more polished and nicer model. Okay, and the last step is to mirror it, so we can actually bring it back to where it's properly upside down. Notice that our Y is facing the wrong way, so let's flip it over back 180, and we probably don't even need to scale it. All we need to do is duplicate, Control D, and of course at this point we want to have the rest of our legs in, and assuming that our pivot point is center, we can set our scale to -1, and we basically have a full both sides of the scorpion, which is a good idea to actually separate this a little bit further before we start merging, combining and merging. Something like that, if we don't really concern too much with our symmetry. But actually it looks like I don't have a perfect symmetry here. There is a bit of an overlap, which is important to correct before we move any further. So here is actually our vertices, which we need to make sure we snap to the center this way. Let's turn on our status line, and further on the right we can move all these points to where X is 0. There we go. For now, let's just move those away. Make sure sure we have everything nice and clean. Control D to duplicate, set scale to -1, combine, and merge our vertices with a very small threshold.